you were not the pastor in 2003, but
no.
So Chris is just going to introduce himself here for us real quick and say a prayer over you guys and our camp. And we just want to thank him for letting us continue to be here and supporting us. CLC are big supporters of what we do. We have an office here. We get things like our insurance through them. All these things are important and necessary for us to continue to go. So it's important for you guys to know the connection and the history that we have here in this place also.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
A little traffic on the way in. Anyways, great to be here. Love the ministry. Glad I could be part of. I feel like I am an outsider coming into what you guys have already established. So I get the benefit of all the labor that's gone before. Long before I was here, this second round of Christian Life Center. And grateful for it. So glad that Christian Life Center could have a part of what God's doing through this ministry. And yeah, what a history this ministry has from the Teshas all the way to today. Grateful for the leaders that started this here. Grateful, very grateful. And grateful for you for keeping it going. What a worthy endeavor in the kingdom of God. So let me pray. Father, thank you so much, God, for each person here. Always thank you for Katie and just the vision you gave her, Father, the energy you gave her, and God, just your hand of blessing upon her leadership and all the leaders here at For the Children. God, I pray right now that you will continue to raise up those who you want to stand in the gap for these children. Father, I pray you will not only let people be faithful with their assignments for this year, but God, I pray you will put in the hearts of many here today, God, things you want them to do in the future for the children. God, let that be confirmed through witnesses. God, let this be confirmed through prayer. But God, I know that you want not only a great foundation, God, here, but you want a great just roots that are going to be immovable and foundational in this part of the country. So God, I pray for your favor and pray for your blessing in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for fighting our way through traffic for a 3-minute thing. So just a couple quick notes before we're going to start a video. Bathrooms, we have some back here, men's back here, women's here. Bathrooms are also down this hallway over here. We have a ton of food. Thank you to Marty for the spread that you put out for us. We have coffee. If you need to do things to take care of your body, please do so. If your body is in dysregulation, you'll have a hard time paying attention to what we're doing up here. So please make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you need a stretch, do that. Just try and be, not disrupting and distracting around you. If you have a phone, which all of you have a phone, just make sure you have it silenced, please, so that we're not being distracted by that as well. So in a second, we're going to show a video. So a little background with this video. Each year, For the Children has a national conference with all the different chapters around our country and actually international. This year, there were chapters there from other countries. It was very cool. This was the 60th, yes? Yeah, 60th? 40th. I work at UCSC, and we just had our 60th anniversary at UCSC, and I keep swapping both of those. It's been great in both arenas. 40th anniversary of when Royal Family Kids Camp started. And so it was a big special event that they did this year, and they had really amazing speakers. We're going to see a couple of them today from their videos. This first one is with Jeff Jahala. He has been one of the main trainers of directors and main curriculum people and safety and training people for Royal Family Kids Camp and For the Children for years. Forever. I don't even know how long he's been doing it, like 20 years or something like that. He was one of the people that trained me when I went to director's training to be able to do this. And this was his last year, too. So he is stepping down from that. He's moving out of the state. But he gave this really amazing presentation about how important everyone's role is. And it's not just the big ones that you see, but everyone has this piece that they play. Everyone is vital. There are no small roles. That is very important for you guys to know. Whether you're support staff, night counselor, full-time counselor, everyone matters in what they're doing. Everyone has a piece to play. The people that are praying for us, the people that sponsor birthday bags, everything matters. And so his talk is amazing. We're going to get to watch it as he talks about that. But Jeff will be missed. He's great. All right, go ahead and start the video, please. Thank you.
To introduce Jeff and bring Jeff up to the stage. Jeff has been a great friend and mentor for me through many years of my volunteering for the children, and it's an honor and a privilege to have him come and lead today's devotion. So let's give Jeff a round of applause.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim. And I just want to make sure you hear publicly from me that I could not be more thrilled to have Jim take my spot as the VP of Training. I give him my full endorsement, and I want you to give him your full endorsement as well as he takes over that great, wonderful job. I also want to say, hey, I am here today just like you. I'm here today as a volunteer, just like I was 25 years ago. My wife and I attended training 25 years ago. In fact, my wife is here, my daughter and my aunt, they're in the back. If you guys want to stand and wave, they're here today. They have not been able to attend most of the times that I speak because usually I'm in another state somewhere, so it's great to have them. But 25 years ago, we attended director's training, and our lives have been somewhat different ever since, and it's been wonderful. So we've had some great moments and some great opportunities over the last 25 years. I'm going to share with you guys a statement today, and it's just a statement. It should be, that's the name of the devotion. Let's see, here we go. Measure twice, cut once. Measure twice, cut once. Now, that's a statement. As a woodworker, I really know what that means. I really know. See, I get a couple of yeses. You know what that means, too. But that's just a statement. A statement teaches. A statement instructs. You can learn from a simple statement, but if we could illustrate that statement, you could learn even more. So that's a statement, and that's an illustration. Statement, illustration, right? The illustration puts it into context as to why it's so important that you hear the statement. So that's an illustration of what we're talking about as far as statements versus illustrations. I'm going to share with you today a statement. It's a simple statement. You'll probably agree with it. But then I'm going to spend the rest of my time giving you illustrations, layers and layers and layers of illustrations, because sometimes things have to be learned in layers, especially things that take time. So I'm going to share with you this simple statement. I bet some of you are going to agree. I bet most of you are going to agree with it. But it's really a head knowledge until you have lived enough life to where you can say, I've not just heard that statement, I don't just agree with that statement, but I have lived that statement. So here's the statement. You have impacted more people than you know. You have impacted more people than you know. And as a 20, 25, 30-year-old kid, I would have agreed with that statement. I would have shaken my head and said, I believe in that statement. But I hadn't really lived it yet. Now that I'm 57, I can tell you I have lived out that statement. I've seen it lived out multiple times. My goal today for all of you is that I want to help change perspective. I want to help change behaviors. And if you're already sold out to this statement that you've impacted more people than you know, then I want you to become the messenger of this devotion, of these words, of these illustrations, so that more people can learn this type of information. I believe we have some volunteers and some Christians in general who really struggle wondering if they have impacted their world. They wonder, and if they doubt, then they don't give their all when they show up. And I get that. We're just human. We want to see that we've made a difference. We want to know that we've impacted this world. But if we struggle, if we doubt, then we don't give our all. And I want every one of our volunteers to show up with confidence that they are impacting this world. The problem is, sometimes we don't see the impact because it takes time. I'm reminded of the story in Luke. Jesus stood in front of 10 men with leprosy. And he said to those 10 lepers, go and see the priest. And they left, and on the way, they were healed of their leprosy. 10 men with leprosy had a deadly disease. and one came back to thank Jesus. And he says, where are there others? And they didn't come back. Jesus got 10% to come back. He healed them of a deadly disease. And these were adults. We deal with children who've lived through trauma. It takes them time to understand the full impact of what you and your team and your volunteers actually do for them. Yes, they have joy. Yes, they have happiness. They're thrilled with pancakes in the swimming pool, and there's lots of measurement that we see in their lives. But some things just take more time. Let me give you a couple of real-world examples. If you've lived long enough, you'll attend several of these. Retirement parties and going-away parties. Going to one isn't enough. You've got to live long enough that you've gone to several retirement parties and going-away parties before you figure out that lives are really impacted. Not only are lives really impacted, but people wait until you retire to tell you. They wait until you leave to tell you, because that's just who we are in our humanness. Now, I've got an insider tip for you right now. If you really want to know how much you've impacted this world, if you want to get the full spectrum of how many people you've touched and the way you've touched them, here's the insider tip. Sneak in the back door of your funeral. Don't be too noisy. You'll scare them. Sneak in the back door. And you're going to hear wonderful people tell the rest of the world how fabulous you are and how much you have literally impacted their lives, because they'll wait until you die. Now, 10% won't wait. 10% will say something, just like what Jesus said. And I believe we have a lot of 10%ers right here in this world, right here in this room. A lot of 10%ers, all right? So let me go to a couple of real-world stories. Joe Seeley is the Bible teacher up in Concord, California, and he told me this story about his brother Ken. Ken Seeley is an iron worker in San Francisco. Not exactly the Bible Belt, not exactly the place where you would think this is an easy place to be an evangelist. But Ken Seeley lives Jesus out loud. Everybody on that crew knows Ken Seeley is a Christian. He talks about Jesus, he talks about the Bible, and he gets pretty quick feedback. He impacts the crew, and he gets fast feedback. The fast feedback he gets is they make fun of him, they joke about him, they tease him, and they borderline ridicule him because they're iron workers in San Francisco. It comes with the trade. So he impacts, and he gets feedback. One day, an iron worker grabs Ken and pulls him aside so that the other iron workers don't hear it. And he says, Ken, my wife has cancer. He said, I don't believe in prayer, but I know you do. Would you pray for my wife? He said, I don't even believe in it, but I know you do. Would you pray for my wife? That's a powerful way to impact people. He was getting made fun of, he was getting teased, he was getting razzed, but he was still impacting his fellow workers. Let me introduce you to a man named Dan Fong. Dan and Sandy Fong were 10-year camp directors in Kearney, Nebraska. They were 18-year trainers on our national training staff. Sandy is on our board. Dan was a middle school English teacher in his town and taught middle school boys basketball. Then he moved up to the high school, and he was an English teacher at the high school. Every once in a while, Dan, as an English teacher in town, would run into a current student or a former student, and they would say, hey, Mr. Fong, you were a great teacher. You know, they'd give him some feedback like that. That was a pretty common thing. One day he got a message on Facebook. Said, are you Mr. Fong who taught English and basketball? He said, yes. Said, my name's Timothy. I was in your class. I just wanted to let you know how much you really, touched my life. And he said, well, thanks, Tim, for reaching out. Have a good life. Timothy responds with this note. Perhaps I wasn't explaining myself clearly. I moved to town in the 8th grade, and I hated everything about it. You were my basketball coach my first year in that hellhole. I was terrible at basketball. You were the only person who did not laugh at me while I was on the court. And I thought to myself, wow, if I could just be in Mr. Fong's class, because it would be so amazing. Then I was a junior, and I hated everything, including myself. But I was in your English class. You were the only adult I knew who said, I don't know, when I asked you questions. And you were still the only one who didn't laugh at me. When I had to move to New York, I almost killed myself. I had a rope, I had a reason, and I had a note. But I didn't because of you. You were the only teacher who actually treated me like a person and you didn't ignore, dismiss, laugh, or punish me. Even now, as I've eclipsed 40, 22 years after high school, as I've eclipsed 40, 20, impacting people's lives takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. As I've eclipsed 40, I count you as a truly formative and salvific figure in my life. Salvific, having the power or intent to save or redeem. So, thank you. If I never see you again, if I never meet you again, thank you for saving my life. What heroic steps did Dan Fong take? He didn't laugh at him. He didn't ignore him. He didn't dismiss him. He simply treated him like a person. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, that's a 1 in a million letter to get back. And I agree, it's not common, but I don't think it's 1 in a million either. I think there's a lot of hurting kids that show up in our public schools and get treated well by good teachers. I think there's a lot of kids that show up at your mentoring clubs and get treated well by you mentors and step off that bus at camp and get treated well. And sometimes it's really heroic stuff that we do. And sometimes it's just the simple, basic things of life. That kids just need us to be there and be part of their life. Sometimes there's something called dormant impact. The impact you make in someone's life, and it lays dormant for years. And then at the right moment, at the right time, it matters the most. Let me introduce you to some characters I've got on stage here. We're going to jump from some life stories to the Old Testament. One of my favorite stories in the Old Testament is the story of Naaman. He's that guy that had leprosy and dipped in the river 7 times and was healed of his leprosy. I love this story. It's a great story. So let me start with Naaman. He's over here on the end. Here's Naaman, our Syrian army commander. And he dips in the Jordan River 7 times, and he comes up and he is physically healed of his leprosy. And he also has a spiritual healing. It says in 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 15, now I know there is no God in all the world but the God of Israel. I love that statement. Now I know there is no God. So I wanted to be true and authentic to the Bible, and I wanted to make sure I was doing this right. So I looked up several scholars and said, is that just a head knowledge he's talking about, or is that a repentant heart? And all the scholars who read that in Hebrew and understand the context better than me said, we believe that was a repentant heart, a change of heart, a salvation moment. Old Testament's a little different than the New Testament. They said because of the context of what he said, how he said it, and the rest of the story, you can read it later, they believe that was a repentant, changed heart. Now that's a highlight moment. That's something we're striving for right there. That's impact right there. But how did Naaman get here? Who impacted Naaman's life to get him to dip in that river? Let's go back to the beginning. Naaman says, I've got leprosy, and he's an army commander, and he's got servants in his home, and one of the servants in his home is this little girl, a captured Israeli servant girl. She's a slave in his home. She's a slave in his home. But she has compassion, and she speaks up. She says out loud, oh, that my master would go to Israel and see the prophet, for he would heal him of his leprosy. She didn't have to speak up. But with compassion in her heart, she speaks up and she says, there's a man in Israel who can heal you. Can I tell you that you have impacted people with nothing more than compassion? You have changed lives with nothing more than compassion. When you speak up about what's compassionate on your heart, your chapters, your camps, your mentoring clubs have probably been started by someone who said, we need to do something about this child abuse thing. Somebody had compassion to get that started. Somebody spoke up. Somebody said, I'll go. With compassion, you can impact lives. Well, Naaman hears about it. He says, yeah, I want to go. So he goes to his king, the king of Syria, and he says to his king, will you allow me to go? And the king of Syria says, yes, you're my friend. I want you to go. I want you to get healed. I'll give you letters. I will give you a letter of introduction to the king of Israel. So the king of Syria becomes a man of resource. We all need people with resources. Every one of your donors is a person of resources. Every time you've sent some kid on a missions trip from your church or your youth group, every time you've written a letter of recommendation, every time you've entered somebody's lives, you have impacted people's lives with nothing more than resources. My wife and I support a child in Africa through Compassion International. We've sent resources. I've never met the young man, but we've been people of resources. You have been people of resources. It's a small part to play, but it's an important part in this journey. So he sends the letter to the king of Israel. Naaman shows up. to the king of Israel. And by the way, as good as this man is, he does confuse the situation just a little bit. He writes in the letter, I'm sending Naaman to you, king, so that you may heal him of his leprosy. Well, it's supposed to be the prophet. He got the letter mixed up. If you get enough adults in a row, somebody's going to mess up the story. It's going to happen, right? Everybody's journey is going to have some confusion, and they got to work through it, or you got to work through it. So the king of Israel says, who am I? Am I God? I can't heal this man of his leprosy. He's picking a fight. So he tears his robes. And then Elisha, the prophet, hears about it. So here's Elisha. He hears that his king is tearing his robes. There's something distraught. Elisha, operating in his gifting, says, send him to me. So Naaman gets sent over to Elisha. Now Elisha is back over here. And Naaman comes and apparently knocks on the door to get Elisha to come out and say something. Elisha never comes out. He's in the back room. He's watching Netflix. He doesn't even come out. It's probably The Chosen. He's watching The Chosen. He's back here. He doesn't even come out of the room. But he sends a messenger. The next fellow in our story. He sends a messenger. And the messenger shows up to Naaman and says, the prophet says to go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. He's just a messenger. Not even his original words. All he's doing is saying what this man said to say. Can I tell you, when you operate in your gifts, you impact lives. When you're the messenger of somebody else's words, you can impact lives. Every time you have shared a scripture with somebody, you are sharing somebody else's words. Every time you share what your pastor said on Sunday with somebody else, you're sharing somebody else's words. You can impact lives by simply being a messenger. In fact, of all the roles here, you've probably shared more messages than you've done anything else. And if you look at your life, there's probably been thousands of people who've shared a simple message with you. The right words at the right time can have big impact. You can be nothing more than a messenger of God's word, of God's hope, of God's fulfillment. So Naaman's angry, though. He thought, well, I had some assumptions that the prophet would come out and wave his hand around and do something amazing, but he doesn't. So Naaman's mad, angry, furious, and he walks away. But Naaman brought with him some servants. He brought with him, because he's an army commander, he brought with him some servants. And his servants start to act more like friends. They say to Naaman, hey, relax, calm down, take a chill pill. It's okay. If the prophet had said to do something lofty, would you not have done something lofty? Why don't you dip in the river 7 times? What have you got to lose? You see, he was mad and he was angry, and his friends told him to calm down and get a new perspective. Have you ever gotten a phone call from somebody who was mad, angry, and just needed to talk? Has anyone ever asked you to coffee because they just needed to get something off their chest? You can impact people by just being a good friend at the time of need. Maybe it's when they're mad and angry, but maybe it's when they want to celebrate because they've just had a child or a grandchild. Just being a good friend at the time of need can be very heroic. It doesn't always have to be the most amazing things, but it has to be that you're there in your life. So here's Naaman. He's having this physical healing. He's having a spiritual revelation. The only ones who get to see it are his friends because they happen to be here. All the rest of these people are not there when it happens. They're all part of his journey, but they're not there when it happens. Sometimes in our minds, we can feel a little bit of Christian guilt because we've never led somebody to the Lord in the sinner's prayer. Sometimes we can doubt our actions because we've never been there when someone got their physical healing. Sometimes we can look at that moment and say, that's the gospel over there. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, this is all the gospel. The gospel begins here, not there. It begins right here with compassion and resources and working through confusion and working in your gifts and passing on the message and being a good friend. It begins here. Your volunteers at mentoring, your volunteers at camp, all those planning meetings, working in your gifts, building resources. You may hear about those wonderful, fabulous moments, and they are great moments. And we're going to hear some former alumni today, and those are fabulous moments to hear about what happens. But you're going to spend a lot of heroic time right here. If you look back at your life, I bet you could line up a number of people who helped you on your journey to Jesus. And they were probably not there when you had your spiritual moment. But you have probably got a list of people that have been part of your journey to Jesus. Let me share with you one story about a camper who wrote in and said, here's my experience. Her name is Stacy Crawford. She's from Missouri, and she had some great experiences at camp. She says, in the story, I got this on the Unleash Faith Stories. We have a whole bunch of these great stories on that Unleash platform. It says, my counselor gave me a week of pure fun. The polar bear swim, shooting a bow and arrow. She taught me she taught me God is always there, how much he loves me, through her actions, what a good role model looks like. She says, I cannot forget our Captain Crunch table for those of us who had a love of Captain Crunch cereal. This exclusive club included the camp therapist, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin who helped me plant a tree. She goes on to say, I was later adopted by an extended family member, and it didn't become all I had hoped it would be. When I was old enough, I moved back to Missouri because I wanted to live the rest of my life with my camp family, the people who were more like a family to me than anyone else. She moves back to this camp family to do life with them. She said, as a child for me, listen, it was the littlest things that people may not realize, like painting and planting and sharing the love of Captain Crunch cereal. God truly does work everything for the good. He truly does have a plan for every one of us, even if we do not see it at the time. That's operating in faith. Even if we don't see it at the time, they don't see it all at the time. We don't see it all at the time. When we're working here in these heroic moments, we're operating in faith, that's for sure. We need to believe in the things we don't see. We need to understand the things we don't see. Well, she mentions Captain Crunch twice. And personally, I've had a good relationship with the captain for a long time. When I look at these kernels, I'm reminded of Matthew when Jesus said the parable of the sower. He said the farmer went out to sow his seed, and some seed was scattered on hard ground. It was burned up by the sun, and some was choked out by the weeds, and some was eaten by the birds. But he said some seed landed on good soil and reaped a harvest 30, 60, or 100-fold. Good soil. Ladies and gentlemen, good soil walks in your door at the mentoring club. Good soil walks off that bus when they come into camp. That's good soil. And we can reap a harvest 30, 60, or 100-fold. Now, I love the 10%. I love it when kids come back and tell us. But my real goal isn't the 10%. My real goal is a 100-fold harvest. Right? A 100-fold harvest. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if Captain Crunch can be part of the mosaic of memories of a child's life that is on their journey to Jesus, then I say, let's make memories. Right? Let's spread the gospel. Me and the captain saving souls. Why not, Captain Crunch? Why not? Let me take a hard turn in my last story for you, from Captain Crunch to Omaha Beach. Next slide, if you could. I met Jack Gutman several years ago. He spent 8 hours on Omaha Beach, June 6, 1944. I met him 4 times. We had some great conversations, and he tells the story in his book, and he told me some of this in person. Jack, because of his PTSD, was overly generous and spent all of his money. And at the age of 85, he was broke, and he had to go back to work. At 85, he got a job at a retail store at the cashier. And he said, I would see 100, 200, 300 people going through the line, and they looked like lonely people. I wanted to say something. I wanted to encourage them. I wanted to share the gospel. But there's company policy, and there's so little time, and I'm 85. They don't want to hear about Jesus while they're getting their milk and their toast. But he was intentional. He said, I want to do something. So in this moment where you could say to yourself, not likely that you'll do much for sharing the gospel, in this kind of moment, he said, I want to be intentional. And he came up with a statement. He said, to every single person who walked through the line, he said, how's life treating you today? And one day, a young lady walked through his line who was visibly pregnant. And he said, how's life treating you today? And she indicated, oh, not so good. Pregnant, challenges with my husband, challenges with the pregnancy, finances are going to change. It's just not so great. And he gave her some words of encouragement. And then he said, I sensed this was one of those moments where I could say a little more. So he said, if you'd like, I'm going to go on break in 10 minutes, and I can meet you at the front door, and I'd like to hear your story, and I'd like to pray for you. She said, I'll do that. So he meets her at the front door, and she tells him her story, and he encourages her, and he prays for her. And she goes on her way, and he goes back to the register. 85 years old, minutes of time, people who didn't come to the store for that, but he wanted to be intentional. Intentional should not be a burden that you bear. Intentional should be something that comes out of your heart, out of a desire. So months go by, and Jack's at a church event out in a public park, and there's chairs and people are coming in, and Jack is up front with the speakers, and he hears this woman, Jack, Jack, and he turns around, there's a woman, Jack, and this woman's waving at him. And he goes down to her, and it's this woman from the store. She says, it's me. I was at the store, and you prayed for me. Do you remember? And he said, I do. I remember praying for you. And she said, let me introduce you to my husband. So she takes him over, and here's her husband. She says to her husband, this is Jack, the man I've been telling you about. I've heard that story about counselors. They run into somebody at the store, and they say to their foster mom, this is my counselor, the one I've been telling you about. Months later or years later. So she says, this is my husband, this is Jack, the man I've been telling you about. And then she said, I want to introduce you to my son. So here's this little boy sitting in the car seat. She said, this is my son. His name is Jack. She says, I named him after you because you cared and you prayed for me. Care and prayer. It doesn't have to be heroic. It's just sharing compassion and sharing resources and being there and operating in your gifts and being a messenger. It's being a friend. Care and share and prayer. Now that's 100-fold. I don't think it's 100-fold because she named her son Jack. I think it's 100-fold because she was at a church event. She had her husband at a church event. She had her baby at a church event. She was exploring Christ. She was trying to connect with the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, you are doing phenomenal work. You have already done so many things to impact lives. Your chapter, your volunteers have done amazing, amazing things. I believe you're doing them now. I believe you're going to do them in the future. I want all of your volunteers to show up with confidence that I can impact lives. If all I do is share compassion, I can impact lives. If all I do is share resources, I don't want people to say, I only write a check. I only serve food. I only do some little thing. No, I get to. I want to. I believe in all these things with faith that I am going to impact lives when I'm operating my gifts, when I'm being a friend, when I'm being the messenger. I get to impact lives in this way. Let me conclude with these statements. Your neighbors are watching. You're impacting their lives. They just don't tell you. Your coworkers are listening, and you are impacting their lives. They just don't tell you. Your students, your friends are absorbing, and they are being impacted by you, but they just don't tell you. The children who step off that bus, the children who walk into your church for mentoring, you are sharing the gospel with them in a variety of ways. Not just the children, but the foster families and your entire community. Let me wrap up this message and really my 25 years at this organization. I'll say my first 25 years at this organization. This is my closing prayer for this moment, but it's also my prayer about my time with all of you. Philippians 4:9, Paul says, whatever you have learned or received or heard or seen in me, put it into practice. Can I tell you, whatever you have read in a manual that I've written, whatever you have heard on a video that I've said, whatever encouragement I may have offered in training or at visiting your camps or your mentoring clubs, if there's anything I've said, if there's anything I've done that's been of worth or value, put it into practice. Put it into practice. And then the verse goes on and says, and the God of peace be with you.
Jeff is a pretty awesome speaker. When I saw that, it really hit me, and I immediately was like, I need to bring this back to our camp and do this at training. I think it's a great way to start us off, reminding us about why we're here and what we're doing and the impact that we have on our kids and on each other, too. So I'm going to have Dave come up. He's going to talk a little bit more about more impact that we have just outside of the week of camp. He is our mentor program director. So he's going to talk about what that is. I also want to let you guys know we will have a break after he's done speaking. So if you're able to hold on a few more minutes, please do so you can hear him. Also, I meant to mention this earlier. You are sitting where your name tag is. Please make sure you're wearing your name tag. One of our camp rules is you always need to wear your name tag. This is great practice for you. I don't know who a lot of you are, and so I need you to wear your name tag so I can call you by name and kind of start connecting dots, but that is useful for everyone else as well. All right, go ahead and take it away, Dave.
Good morning. Yeah, my name's Dave. So I am the director of our Mentor Club. And let's see, what should I say about Mentor Club? Well, one word is awesome. I try not to use that word too much. Actually, I probably use it too much, but I try to leave that word for God because he's awesome. He creates awe, right? And God is doing an amazing work at Mentor Club. So we were able, by God's grace, to start Mentor Club 3 years ago. Technically, we started 3 years ago. The first year, unfortunately, we only had one child sign up, one family, so we couldn't do Mentor Club that year. X and I actually were able to hang out with that young man a little bit on the side. It was more him and X. I was just the third wheel, just kind of facilitating the thing. He really wanted to just be with X. But so anyways, that was 3 years ago. And then the next year we had 7 kids sign up, I think. And then this last year we just completed our third, I call them seasons because they kind of overlap the year. They go from September to May. So we just completed our third season. We had like 19 kids sign up the third season. So God's been, yeah. So what is Mentor Club? You've heard it mentioned. Jeff mentioned it. You've seen it probably in the application and whatnot. But Mentor Club is like a super mini camp. So we do a lot of the same things that we do at camp. It's 3 hours a month. It's one Saturday a month for 3 hours, 9 to 12 on a Saturday. September through May is when we run. We got a lot of amazing volunteers already for the last couple of years. I'm going to start naming them. Hopefully I don't forget. But we have Margie, but we also have Marty, who's our coordinator for the club, Georgina, Debbie, Christian, Shannon, X. Christian does our Bible story. X does our music. We have Eli. Many of you don't know Eli. He's never been to camp because he's got something else going on in the summer when we're doing camp, but he does our puppet show. We do a puppet show. We have a curriculum that we go through with themes, biblical themes that for the children sends us. We get from them. So we go through this curriculum. So we have music and a Bible story and a puppet show. We do snacks and craft and just hang out, and it's awesome. So when you're at camp and you make connection with campers, a lot of times, and we're going to talk about this in the rules, like sometimes campers will say, hey, I want to get together with you. I want to continue this relationship, and we can't give out our contact info. It's part of one of our rules, but one of the awesome things that we do have is like, hey, tell them about Mentor Club. Like we can keep that consistency throughout the year and really continue to build on those relationships. And the kids that we've had, our children at Mentor Club, those relationships are so strong. I mean, you really get to know them more and more and more, and those relationships just run super deep in our hearts and in their hearts. So Mentor Club is awesome. Let's see. What else can I say about Mentor Club? You're going to hear more about it. If you want to know more about it, come talk to me or one of our awesome volunteers that are here at camp. Hopefully I didn't forget anybody. Sarah and Devin. Oh, my gosh. How can I forget Sarah and Devin? They are key Because when things go haywire, when things get sideways, we look to Sarah and Devin. And they have a little bit here and there like they do at camp. We've had a couple of minor, I'm going to call them minor instances, but Sarah and Devin are there to save the day. Who else did I forget? Huh? Sarah and Art are here too. Yeah, obviously we got a lot of volunteers, so we've been really blessed with volunteers. Mentor Club, you're going to hear more about it. Come talk to me. Come talk to one of them to kind of get the experience. But if you want to sign up, you're going to get emails as well. There's an application process. There's training like we do for camp. We have training for Mentor Club too. A lot of it is the same stuff, but we have to, and there's background checks. The whole thing that we do for camp, we have to repeat for Mentor Club. So it's a little bit of a process leading up to September, but please pray about it. And if you can't do it, pray for it. Christian and Shannon have started a little prayer meeting where we get together before club. We pray for club and camp for the children our children that we know and have a relationship with. So just please pray about it, pray for it. Talk to me, but you're going to hear more about it. I don't know if there's anything more I can say other than thank you so much. God bless you guys.